Hello, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen. I don't know if it's me, or has the word Pokemon been circulating a lot lately on the show? I mean, I reviewed the Barney vs. Pokemon fanfic a while back, a Pikachu x Parcheersu fanfic a while back, and now this fanfic, Pikachu Falls in Love. All three of these Pokemon fanfics were requested by fellow viewers. 2 out of the 3 fanfics were requested by the actual authors themselves who wrote the story. That being the Pikachu x Parcheersu redone story, requested by Wave. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm just going to call them Wave. And this person, Zira Dark Lioness. I don't think that's her name on YouTube, but that's her name on the site. I've had people request me, or have requested that I read their stories in the past, and I just need to make this clear to you guys. If you're going to send in a request for me to review your story, do not expect me to sugarcoat the review just because you requested the story. Just because I know that you wrote it doesn't mean I'm going to hold back when it comes to the critique. So if your story has bad grammar and if the story in general is bad, I will point that out. And for those who have watched my show from beginning to end, you know how I can be. So, if you request your own story for me to review, and if you do not like the review, then you should have thought of that before requesting it. Do I make myself clear? Good. So, let's take a look at today's latest fanfic. As stated earlier, it's called Pikachu Falls in Love by Zira Dark Lioness. It's rated K, it's in English, it's romance adventure, it's Ash K / Satoshi and Pikachu, which, by the way, whoever Satoshi is, he doesn't make an appearance in this story whatsoever, so I don't even know why he's listed as a character name. And the story has 3 chapters. It's not tremendously long. I believe it's only like 800 to 900 words, so it's not tremendously long. So, let's get on with the review. Okay, people, when you're going to post a fanfic online, please be sure that you have paragraph spacings. It's a blob of text. It's pretty much a big blob of text. I mean, there are distinguishable paragraphs, but there's no spacing between the paragraphs, so it just looks like a blob of text. You need to have paragraph spacings to make a story readable. Because if there's no paragraph spacing, it makes it very hard to read, which makes my job a lot harder. So, with that set aside, let's read this story. Pikachu and Ash were alone in a large forest. Pikachu loved remembering being a young Pichu running in the forest. As you can clearly see, they spelled the word remembering wrong. But that was before he was domesticated. Up ahead, a young female Pikachu was perched on a rock and cleaning her light yellow fur. As Pikachu and Ash went further up the path, they saw her. The young Pikachu stared at Ash, then at Pikachu, then stretched and hopped off her rock. I think they need some commas in that sentence. Okay, that's not how you spell cautiously. This is how they spelled cautiously. Cauiosly. That's not how you spell it. She cautiously looked at Pikachu, staring. Okay, if she's supposed to be looking at Pikachu, you don't need the word staring in there. Or are you supposed to mean that she's looking at Pikachu who was staring at her? That probably would have made more sense to write something like that instead of having it say, she cautiously looked at Pikachu, staring. Ash his hand down to pet the Pikachu. I think you're missing a word. It should say, Ash placed his hand down to pet the Pikachu. She started to trust him. I'll call her Allie, Ash said, looking at her. Okay, Ash doesn't normally give his Pokemon names. He just calls them Pikachu, Squirtle, Charmander, yada yada yada. So why is this one an exception? Maybe because he has 2 Pikachus? I don't know. And shouldn't the quotation be in its own separate paragraph instead of being in the middle of the first paragraph? And shouldn't it have a comma in there? Well, let's continue. Allie stared confused, but she stepped forward to Ash, or so it seemed. Okay, this is how they spelled seemed. S-E-E-M-D. It should be S-E-E-M-E-D. She snipped Pikachu, and as they left, Allie followed a little bit behind Ash and Pikachu. Okay, they forgot a space between Allie and the comma. You need to make sure you have your spaces, people. Pikachu eventually walked next to Allie. Allie blushed looking at him. They exited a forest and were in a city. Okay, that entire sentence needs to be broken up into two. It should say, Allie blushed looking at him, period. They exited a forest and were in a city. That's what it should say. Allie, who never saw a city, stared in awe. The three walked... Okay, this has happened in other stories where, pretty much they have the letter... They have the number 3 and not the word 3. People have the word. It's really not that hard to put in there. T-H-R-E-E. It's not even that hard to spell. It just comes across as lazy when you have a number in there instead of the actual word. I mean, unless you're putting down a list, then I can see maybe having the number. But if you're talking about more than one object, you should have the word. The three walked down the streets of the city. Allie only stared in awe. Okay, wasn't it stated a sentence ago that she was staring in awe, so why is it being repeated? Ash finally said, I'm going a journey to be a Pokemon master. Okay, there is a billion things wrong with this sentence. First of all, the exclamation point should be inside of the quotations. Secondly, you need an apostrophe for the word I'm, and instead of it saying I'm going a journey to be a Pokemon master, it should say I'm going on a journey to be a Pokemon master. And finally, spoken word should be in its own separate paragraph. It shouldn't be inside of a big paragraph. It should be on its own. And you need commas in there too to separate the dialogue. Let's continue. He said to awestruck Allie. After a while of walking, Allie got tired, and she perched on a bench. She laid down, then Ash picked her up. Pikachu hopped up to Ash. They were in another forest soon. Then suddenly, they spelled suddenly wrong, a storm brewed in. Allie was the only one there used to storms as they happened a lot in her forest. Okay, people? A-L-O-T, a lot, is not a word. It should be two separate words. A being the first word and lot being the second word. A lot is not one word, it is two. They ran back to the city. They both went into a nearby Pokemon Center. Allie never seeing one, just stared. Pikachu jumped down and kissed her. Well, that was random. She blushed. The storm lasted hour after hour after hour. Why can't the writer just put down the storm lasted for hours? Allie and Pikachu were were put on a Pokemon bed. The storm eventually stopped. Ash and his two friends left, and yes, they used the number 2 instead of the word 2. The next forest was drenched in water. They still continued. The forest was beautiful. They spelled beautiful wrong, and the tree leaves sparkled with rain, dropped from the soft leaves, and dripped on Allie's head. Okay, that entire sentence should be broken up into two. It should say, the tree leaves sparkled with rain, period. The rain dropped from the soft leaves and dripped on Allie's head. That's what it should say. Not have it be this one big blob where the two sentences are merged. This is reminding me of the last Pokemon fanfic I reviewed, except not as bad. She started to walk closer to Pikachu as they entered a small thicket. Okay, you spelled entered wrong. It should be E-N-T-E-R-E-D, not E-N-T-E-R-D. Trees were spread out in the green colored, the grassy landscape. Something up ahead looked shiny, but not from the raindrops of the storm. Well, that sentence was a bit too long and a bit too choppy and made no sense. And also, this is where the chapter abruptly ends. It just ends like that. So let's move on to the next chapter. Allie and her new friends walked across the thicket to the end that well, that makes no sense. They have the word was in there. You don't need the word was, so let's read the sentence correctly. Allie and her new friends walked across the thicket to the end that had a nice blue waterfall and green grass. And I think waterfall is one word, not two. Up above, butterfrees were flying in a circle. Okay, first of all, the B in butterfrees should be capitalized because Butterfree is a name. And second of all, why is there an apostrophe S for butterfrees? It's supposed to be a bunch of butterfrees, so it should have no apostrophe whatsoever. You only use an apostrophe if it's something that you own, like the FanFic Critic's watch or the FanFic Critic's razor. With those two sentences, there would be an apostrophe separating FanFic Critic from the S. Now, if there was multiple FanFic critics in the room, then you would not use the apostrophe. Get it? I'm taking this lesson from a fellow fanfiction critic, by the way. I hope you don't mind.